So, hi, I'm Tom Evans, and I'm thrilled today, after a gap of many, many years, to be speaking with Susie Pearl. Hi, Susie.
Hi, Tom. Lovely to be here with you.
Well, it's lovely to be here, as you said. We'll explore this
Yeah.
conversation. Right? So I think I looked on my hard drive a month back when we set up this interview, but when we last spoke, and it's 2010. Would you believe that we last had some conversations? But actually, I discovered that they're all very relevant, and we should republish them because they're still fine for 14 years later. And they're called the Genie and the Wizard. We'll look out for those; they'll be out soon. Um, but the reason we're speaking since then, you've been quite creative. Two books have come out, haven't they, since that time? So the book on happiness and the art of creativity, which is just going bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I came to one of your workshops in the Surrey Hills 10, 12 years ago, and we were instructed to go up and collect the book that we're here to write.
Mm.
And I went home and I did that very thing. I went home and I had that book ready to go in my head from the work that we did over a weekend. And I couldn't stop writing. I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And this book appeared and it got a book deal really fast, like in a few days. And I had a letter this morning from someone going, oh, that book, I just love it. I've given it to so many people. People absolutely adore it. It was talking about how to manifest before manifesting has become much more of a mainstream topic.
Wow! And the title of that book, just so everyone
That's
can.
called Instructions for Happiness and Success.
Yes.
And it's going to be re-released by Penguin next year. So I'm really pleased about that because it's a great book and it sort of stood the test of time. It really has. And talking about ourselves as frequency and vibration and all of these things, but very practical.
Which is kind of guess what's brought us together and brought us back together again. Which is, and also, can I say it's a very tactile book. Get the print version; it's absolutely wonderful too.
Yeah, it's a beautiful book, very colourful, and yeah, the design is gorgeous. And actually, the first person to read it was Paul McCartney. He took my manuscript one morning. We were in East Sussex, and I met him, and he said, "I hear you've written a book." And I said, "Yeah, I happen to have a manuscript. I want to read it." So I said, "Great." And he said, "Yeah, I'm off on a long plane journey tomorrow, so I'll read it on the plane." I went, "Fantastic." I went home and Googled where he was going, and he was going to play for Obama in the White House.
Wow.
So that was fantastic. And when he came back, he went, "I love this book. I just love it." I've given a copy of the concept to my brother. I think he already enjoyed it as well. So that was a nice start.
Oh, wow! If you get that sort of accolade from one of the world's most creative people, that is just
Yeah,
amazing.
from a Beatle. It's great.
Well
And
done.
then the other one, The Art of Creativity, that launched in the pandemic, which was sad because you know how long books take a long time from start to finish and getting out. And I was lucky to work with David Lynch on that. He gave me a front cover quote. But that was nice, talking about creativity and so on. And now I feel very excited about all things creative and how to expand ourselves as human beings. That's kind of why we're here, is to establish our creativity and to think out of the box and to have new ideas. So I'm very excited. I'm still very excited about that subject.
Well, I guess the pandemic actually, I know it's very tough for a lot of people with loneliness and what have you, especially if you're in isolation or care homes, or you have some sort of threatening life condition. But the pandemic caused us as humans to become very, very creative, didn't it, in some ways? I know I produced a couple of books in that time and an album of music and stuff like that. So, and that was having space and time, and also for us to change the way that we're working, stop commuting as much as we are, and that sort of stuff. But the reason we're speaking today is because you're here, and you nearly weren't.
I nearly wasn't. So I'm very grateful to be sitting in my chair talking to you, Tom, because I was given 3 weeks to live.
And when was this? What was the
Which
year?
is quite shocking, in 2018. I
2018.
started acting a little odd and forgetting things, forgetting where I parked my car, And I was happy with life, but friends noticed I was acting oddly. So, and one friend in particular bundled me into her car and took me to hospital to get checked out. And I had a bioresonance where they put magnets on your different parts, and the practitioner said something not right about your brain. Turns out I had a brain tumor. So I went into hospital and they said, this is not good. These kind of things, just not good. We can't do anything. It's right in the center of your brain. And yeah, prepare everything, prepare a will, get your family here, get your affairs in order. So that was interesting. I kind of knew, Tom, that I wasn't going to go. I knew it was not my time. And as I went in for my brain scan, I had this visitation. This golden orb came in. I mean, I meditate a lot and I'm used to feeling energies and noticing at that kind of level of consciousness what's going on around in the energy field. And I got this amazing sensation of having this golden orb around me. And I had just been meditating. And so I asked my higher self, why am I going through this? And I got a very clear reply on an intuitive level. And the reply was that you're going to write a book about this. You're going to get out of it. You're going to have 3 scans. The first one is really bad result, supposedly. The second one, improvement. The third one, you clear bill of health. And that is exactly what happened. And I was also told in that visitation moment that I call them my golden angels who came and made me feel comforted, because they said, you'll be fine, you'll get out of here. And you're having this because you're an author and you have a platform, and you will be sharing this story with the world to inspire about life, what life is about. And so I carried that with me through the whole thing. And I shared it with a few people, telling them I'm going to be fine. And the eyes rolled up and they're like, oh, bless her. You know, she's in denial and and she's very poorly and she doesn't realize. But I did. I got out of it, thankfully.
And do you know, going back before it happened, do you know what conditions might have triggered it in the first place? What was going on in your life that might have actually led to that tumor?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I had been running a entertainment PR agency, working in music and entertainment with very famous people. And my life had been high octane, extremely busy, always on a deadline, rushing around, no real time to spend with myself on self-care. And I think I was exhausted, and this certainly stopped me running around really fast. And also, I feel like I'm on mission now. I have a mission. I have a purpose. I'm here. I found out what my purpose is, and that is to talk about the art of living and dying, what we need to pay attention to, and what happens when we die. Because I have direct experience of this now. I died, and I came back into my body with a white flash. And the next scan I had, the doctors at Cambridge University Hospital said, you know, we've been working, this oncologist said, I've been working in the field for a long, long time. One of the most sort of respected oncologists in the world he is. And he said, I've never seen anything like this. The whole tumor has gone.
That's really
There's no scarring. It's gone. And he actually said, Tom, he said, this looks like a miracle, but we don't work in the medical industry. We're not into miracles. I said, well, I am. That is my business, actually. So from a medical point of view, it looked like a miracle. And from my point of view, it was what the angels had told me would happen. And so now I'm duty bound to get this book and the film. They also said there's a book and a film to come out about the story. It's a really good story. And we tell stories, don't we, that's how we share information. It's how we get wisdom through the ages. And this storytelling thing is giving me the best story I could ever have to share with the world. So I am thrilled. I've just finished my book. It's just gone off to the publishers to the agent who's going to take it to the publishers. So that's exciting.
What's it called? What's the title?
I lost my mind, and I really did. I lost my mind.
So most people have been overworking slightly would manifest a cold or the flu or something like that, and but you actually did a whole brain tumor that nearly that had potential to kill you.
Yeah,
that just seemed a little bit extreme.
Yeah. Well, I remember having. I went to a fun fair when I was very young in my hometown of Stamford in Lincolnshire, and I saw my mum was well into seeing gypsies and having her fortune read, and I somehow I was allowed to have my fortune read. And I remember from being a little girl, probably I was about 5 or 6, and the gypsy said to me, "You've got something very big going to happen in your life in later years, in about your 5th decade probably, and it's going to be enormous. And I see you talking about it in front of big groups of people." Now that stuck with me all the time. I had no idea what she was talking about. I was a little girl. And sure enough, that has come to fruition. And that certainly is in my destiny. That's why I'm here.
Can we just talk a little bit about the actual experience? People call these near-death experiences, but by the sound of it, you had a full-blown death experience. You experienced what it's like to die, but then you're back here to tell the tale. How much of it do you remember? What sort of clarity do you have around this?
Well, it happened so that I could remember it and tell it in full. It's kind of how it was designed for me, I think. So I sat on my bed. I've been a regular meditator for many years. I was in hospital just at the beginning of the journey of the health problem. And I sat on my bed and I felt my spirit whooshing up inside my body, coming up in a swirl, actually. I felt it coming through my body, and I felt it come to the crown of my head. And as I was sitting there kind of half meditating, I had this strong feeling. I thought, okay, I'm going to die. I am going to die here. And I wasn't frightened. I was all right. I went out and found a nurse, and I said, and they were having a meeting and I had to butt in and say, "Excuse me, ladies, could I just ask you to keep an eye on me today, because I think I'm going to die." And they said, "Of course, we'll keep an eye on you. You'll be all right." And they were very nice. I went back into my room, sat on my bed, and then whoosh, I felt this real powerful exodus of my spirit. And it went up through the top of my head, and I went out, and I was aware of what was happening, and I wasn't frightened. And then I left my sack of bones and skin, and I was free flowing and traveling around the universe. It was like a Hollywood movie. It was like flying through the cosmos, the sky, with no restrictions. I was completely free. And not only was I free, I was in bliss. And as I had this journey, I experienced what I experienced. I can talk a bit about what I saw and what I noticed. And I was given a choice. Do you want to come back to your body? And I knew it was a one-time access code to come back. And I'm a mum. And I said, yes, I do want to come back. Bam, white flash, back in my body. And I was healed in that moment. Subsequent brain scans showed. So it was an exploration of the other side of life. That people say to me, "How long were you out?" Not a relevant question. There is no time on the other side like we construct it here. And so for me, it was the experience followed by the return and being healed. And it was beautiful. It was not scary. So I think part of my job is to comfort people who may be losing loved ones or have lost loved ones, to really share with my own personal experience that to die is actually a beautiful experience. And we are free. We're free of worries and concerns. And I have no fear of death now. I have no fear at all. And I came back with a new operating software and a new lens through which to see life. And I now know that we are all connected. It's not you and me and them. It's in this quantum field, as we're told anyway by the gurus and people who study modern physics and quantum physics, we're all one. So thoughts, ideas, and particularly words, I notice the power of words, and I'm excited about that as a writer. The words have power, words have energy, as do thoughts and intentions. And I noticed in my journey, one of the profound noticings was that as soon as I thought something, instantaneously that happened. So for example, I thought, I want to be back in my body. I want to come back. I want to be with my son and be able to look after him. And as soon as I thought that thought, poof, there I was back in my body in my hospital room.
Now, many people that have experienced what are called NDEs, near-death experiences, come back and say that they've been joined by another spirit, or they got new skills, super sensibilities. I think Steiner would refer to them, like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. Have you noticed any upgrade, if you like, a software upgrade to yourself since this incident?
I have had a software upgrade. My operating system is a different version, completely different version. I see the world very differently. And that took some adjusting. You know, so when I came back out of hospital, I was living in Ibiza. I had a nice house in the forest. And the day I got back, the house caught fire and the whole house was in flames. And
Wow.
everything I owned was melted and destroyed in that one evening, except for one thing. I returned the next morning with friends to look at all the damage, and there was one tarot card upturned in the dust and the soot, and it was the rebirth card. So if I didn't already know what the purpose of this fire was, I found out then. It took me back to nothing. And I was homeless. I was homeless for a while. I had to rely on friends' generosity and kindness, which I was lucky to have many people who were very kind and lent me homes and things. But fundamentally, we were homeless. And so there was just me and my son. And so we were sort of traversing from one place to another. And that was a very powerful time to reintegrate back into life with no home and with no belongings and so on. I had to reintegrate, and also with seeing the world so differently now. I wasn't the person I was before. People would greet me and go, Susie, hi, how are you? I've heard your story, it's amazing. And I thought, yeah, I look the same. I have the same name, the same facial features, but I am not the same person. I see the world so differently. And many things don't make sense to me now. I mean, war, for example, why on earth would we think that's a good idea? I know it's $1 trillion industry, of course. So you track it back to the money. But why would we kill anyone or anything that's sentient? I don't understand. Because when we hurt others, we're hurting ourselves. So there's this sort of deep, fundamental understanding now about the complexities of being a human being. We don't come into life with a manual telling us how to be a human, but being human is really, really tough. And I've always been interested in the esoteric and the metaphysical and the power of consciousness. And I realized that everything that comes to us that is difficult, challenging, awful, we can bless it. And in one of your meditations that I've just done this week, Tom, there is a technique where the first thing you say is thank you. Thank you. To acknowledge that everything that comes in is really designed to expand and teach us important things that we're here to learn. And for me, this dying experience was my greatest teacher. And people often say to me, I'm so sorry to hear that you had brain cancer. And in my lighter moments, I'll say, and if I think they can hear it, I'll just say, are you kidding? This was the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. Because I knew I wasn't going to go. I knew I was staying. No one else did around, except my son, actually, he knew. But no one else thought I'd make it. So I now experience life differently. You know, having had been told I've just got a few weeks to live, we make very different decisions when we are faced with our own mortality. Suddenly things become really important. It's not worth arguing with a neighbor. It's not worth being fearful about, what did I say in that meeting? Do they like me? Who cares? Doesn't matter. You know, in the big scheme, here we are living life. And I think we're here and we're meant to be happy.
So you've experienced two miracles in short succession. And one is the miracle of recovering from the tumor disappearing completely, and apparently there was no scarring in the brain either, which is your oncologist must have thought was most bizarre. Then you got the miracle of just one tarot card. Now tarot cards are pretty flammable, so you'd expect them to burn. And you mentioned the rebirth card, which I think is like the death card. So the tarot card makers had a sense of humor, didn't they, when they put it all together? So the death card is all about you can't have life without death and vice versa and what have you. What other miracles do you think then are lining up for you, or what miracles are you capable of bringing through you and bestowing on others and on the planet now that you've been through this experience?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm not different to anyone else. It's just that maybe my perception of things and my awareness of things is different. And I see serendipities and connections. I bump into the right people at the right time. I live in a small village, and often, you know, I'll be thinking of someone and there they are. And we all know this feeling of serendipity, and this happens a lot to me, and I don't know if it's just because I notice it more, and I expect miracles every day, and I meditate, and I say what I want. I call for what I want. I ask for what I want, and so I kind of expect miracles, and I know that my belief system is that we can create anything. We can do anything. Consciousness is incredible. And the ancients knew this. And I'm getting into a lot of the old sacred geometry and the powerful nature of shapes. And look at churches and cathedrals and all this. I'm working with a sound guy at the moment who's amazing. He's out in Egypt at the moment. He's just done some recordings in the King's Chamber. And the extraordinary architectural stories behind these ancient civilizations and buildings and Stonehenge and all the rest of it is extraordinary. We have no idea how it all was put together, but somehow humans created these things. So I'm a big fan of miracles, and I think they are available to everyone.
So what could experience a miracle and not go through a near-death or death experience or something extreme, or even having a cold at the weekend or something like that? How would you recommend that they tap into them? What's the route into them without going through the extreme experience that you've been through?
Yeah. Well, I think my extreme situation allowed me to experience this very big storyline. And I think we are all subject to miracles very regularly. It's a case of us tuning into noticing them. And I think when we play with our consciousness and play with the connection that we have with ourselves, with the inner deep spiritual self, this is a route to be able to play and energize this miracle energy. And it's very fun to do. And I think if I was perhaps talking to my younger self, I would encourage myself to throw myself into learning about everything that's possible with energy, consciousness, and creating miracles, believing that I can, setting the intentions that I can, and really noticing them as they come along. Our whole life is really one big storybook, We collect stories, and we have many stories that happen every day. I try and keep a journal and notes of what happens every day. Sometimes I have so many things that happen just in one day. Like, how can that all happen in one day? And we all, our lives are full of stuff. Even if we take it slow and calm, we still have a lot of things happen to ourselves. So I think that the mechanism for miracles is inbuilt.
And so what you're saying is that miracles happen all the time, but perhaps in a busy world, we just don't notice them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good. Well, there's a miracle dropping sometime next year, which is in the form of your book. What's the new book called?
It's called I Lost My Mind, and it's felt an important book to write. I feel like I did a soul contract, that I would get better if I wrote this and a film was made. I was lucky enough to have an LA agent, Bill Gladstone, wonderful literary agent. He passed the day I finished the book, and he was mentoring me with it. And he has an LA agency that has a Hollywood film department. He always wanted this to be a Hollywood movie ever since he first heard about it. So I'm going to honor that, and we're doing a film treatment, and I'm honoring the writing of this book, and I've put a lot of myself into it, and I've sprinkled through the book the things that I've learned from dying and coming back. I've condensed it into 7 things that I've learned from dying and living and dying, and I would hope and pray that it gives people inspiration for living, really. Because it's a funny old thing being human, being in a body, navigating our way through life with relationships, with money, with work, with health, with all our desires. And, it's a complex business for anybody. And we're all entrapped in a kind of media perception of life. And it can appear very glossy